Gotta wait for the spinning circle to stop on my YouTube live streaming page to make sure that we're actually going live. All right, good afternoon, folks. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing the usual checks to make sure that we are live right now. So thank you guys for joining me today. I'm doing great. I'm really excited. I'm still working from home. Now, anybody who dropped in yesterday, thanks for hanging out with me. I know it's kind of like a rambling mess because it's a topic that I don't really talk about too much and I'm not super knowledgeable on. But I was so excited to see that Elon Musk was launching his Dragon capsule into space. I just had to do that. It was a total drag that it ended up being postponed. I think they stopped the countdown at about T-minus 16 minutes. So they're going to be trying it again next Saturday. So since it is over the weekend, that means that you guys don't have to tune in and listen to me ramble incoherently about how awesome space is and all that good stuff. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I'm super hungry today. Like, I've had a couple of super hard workouts, and it was a really hot day this morning. So when I went for a run, it was like really hot, a little bit unpleasant, but that's all right. It was kind of an easy run. So I thought that today would be a great day to have some ice cream. And what better ice cream than Ben & Jerry's? I think Ben & Jerry's might be like a little bit overblown, but I mean, they're just so over the top. You can't help but love it. It's so good. Got some Tonight dough. Oh, that's good. Oh my goodness. Nice and cold. Really hits the spot. Caramel and chocolate ice creams with chocolate cookie swirls and gobs of chocolate chip cookie dough and peanut butter cookie dough. Thank you, Jimmy Fallon, for the Tonight dough. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I hope that things are going all right in your neck of the woods, wherever you happen to be tuning in, watching this from. Even though the world does seem to be opening up quite a bit, a little bit more, I'm still working from home. Microsoft, I think it's just Microsoft Game Studios actually have put in a policy where we're going to be working from home through December. I believe that's basically because everybody's kind of like, locked in. They've gotten their daily routine, so they don't want to disrupt people any more than they already are. Because it is going to be a busy summer, it's going to be crunch time. We're launching new games with a new console. And in the middle of a pandemic, it's like this confluence of a bunch of different things, just making this as hard as possible. But we're all hanging in there. All right, let's see who all is in the chat already. I have no idea how to pronounce her name. I'm gonna butcher this. Maj Midovic? Midovic? Let me know how badly I butchered that. Let me know how exactly to pronounce your name. Say, well, I'm early this time, lol. Thanks for joining me, man. I'm glad you could show up today. Eric Winokur saying that you love Ben & Jerry's, more dense than usual. Enjoy the flavors are awesome. Yeah, they are super awesome. I do like that Ben & Jerry's has a nice high fat content. They really don't skimp on it. Like, they go out of their way to make, really good ice cream. Like I mentioned at the top of this, I think it's a little bit, I don't know, what's the right word to put it? It's like they're trying too hard with all the mix-ins and stuff, but sometimes those kinds of things are fun. Like, honestly, I think Haagen-Dazs ice cream might be a little bit better because it is the same kind of premium ice cream without all of the ridiculous stuff mixed in, but this is just fun. So you gotta have Ben & Jerry's every now and then. It's the kind of thing that you have fun with. Zeppyish says, Edwards! One of these days, I'll have some Edwards pies. Don't worry, man. I actually do have an Edwards pie in my freezer. So tomorrow, if I remember that I said this today, tomorrow it's going to be Edwards pies. No, don't hold me to that. It's probably not going to be Edwards pies. But yeah, I'll try to remember to get some Edwards pies because they are super good. AJ, thank you for joining us. Says, hey, Steve, bummer about the launch yesterday. Womp womp. Yeah, it happens. I mean, I guess it's a good thing that they called it off because if they hadn't called it off, then there's a good chance that something really tragic might have happened. So Yeah, hopefully things go a little bit better this weekend. They said that they've got another window when they can launch on Saturday. If they miss that one, then there's a third window when they can launch on Sunday. So I'm going to be tuning in live to see how that all's going to go down. Eric Gunnarsson, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for joining us. I am enjoying some Tonight Dough with Jimmy Fallon. AJT, say my favorite Ben & Jerry's flavor is milk and cookies. You can't go wrong with those cookie-flavored ice creams. I think anything with the cookie dough chunks, those kinds of things are definitely my favorite. And the Tonight Dough had plenty of cookie dough chunks in it. So yeah, super, super delicious. So, oh my gosh. I'm going to let that loosen up a little bit. And while I am randomly typing into things where people can't see what I'm doing, because this is the best way to do live streams, obviously, I'm being really facetious. I know this is not the best way to do live streams, but I thought it'd be cool to talk about something that I use almost on a daily basis, caffeine. I think most everybody uses it. It is the most popular stimulant drug in the world. I don't actually know if it is classified as a drug, but it is a stimulant, so it is in the same class of chemicals as I don't know, Adderall, I guess, is also a stimulant. But it does operate a little bit differently than some other stimulants, so I thought it'd be cool to kind of talk about it. And it is really interesting how it operates in the body, and the way that what they generally call the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics, which are two really amazing words that you can bust out in a party if you want to sound super smart. Those both basically mean how the body reacts to when a chemical is introduced into it, and the other one means how the body breaks down the chemical inside of it. But I got to thinking of this because yesterday I did this pretty epic training run. I think I talk about hitting the track pretty frequently. So yesterday I went and ran some hundreds. See my little dot moving all around in the circle in that track so many times. I must have gotten really dizzy. And you can see this middle one, the blue graph, is my speed, how it pops up really high for short periods of time. Those were the hundreds that I was running. I was doing 100-meter sprints. I thought I had done 10 of them, but apparently I'd only done 9. So, oops. Let's see. Where were my sprints? I was basically around 16 seconds per 100-meter sprint. I think on this one, segment 17, that was the 8th sprint that I did. That was much slower, 17 and a half seconds. That was when I realized it was probably a good idea to call it quits. And then after this last one, I fell to my knees and I threw up. I gotta say, it was it was the first time I've pushed myself to throwing up during a workout since, oh my gosh, I think the last time I did it, I might have been 15 or 16 years old, so quite a while. So yeah, pushed myself to throwing up. Rock on, I guess. One thing about these high-intensity sessions is, during the session, you're not really burning a ton of calories. If you look at my estimated calorie burn, I'm only burning, 5 or 6 calories per 100-meter sprint. But afterwards, your cortisol is jacked up so high, and you're so stressed out, your body's in freak out mode, that you just completely lose your appetite. So it was, I was not hungry for about an hour and a half after that. But before, anytime I work out in the morning, I almost always use caffeine as a stimulant to help get me going. And it is kind of funny that a lot of people conflate coffee with caffeine. If you say that you take caffeine, they just assume it's coffee. And likewise, if you say you drink coffee, people assume it's caffeinated, when that's not always really the case. My favorite form of it is, I believe, called caffeine anhydrase. That's the kind you typically find in supplements. I just take Vivarin caffeine pills. I find it's a lot more convenient. It's a lot quicker to pop a Vivarin than it is to brew a cup of coffee in the morning. And it gives you the same pick-me-up, so I like it. But this morning, I woke up and my legs felt like I had done the most horrendous leg day yesterday. You know, my hamstrings were tight, my quads were sore. I don't even know why my quads were sore. I tried to stand up this morning after rolling out of bed, and my legs just like fell out from underneath me. Like my quads couldn't handle it. Oh my goodness. All right, back to the topic at hand. I like caffeine. I think the entire world likes caffeine. I think we're all addicted to caffeine in one way or another. But it is really interesting the way that it works, because caffeine is not a stimulant that actually gives you energy. I think when you take caffeine, you get a little bit of a release of glucose and glycogen from your liver. You get just a little pump of cortisol. But for the most part, the way that caffeine affects you is actually as an antagonist to this hormone in your body. Well, I don't know if it's a hormone. I think it's a neurotransmitter. Anyway, this chemical in your body called adenosine. And some people might recognize that as the A in ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. So I think the place to start with something like this is folks might, if you recall back to like high school chemistry, you might remember this thing called the Krebs Cycle, which if you don't remember that, I'm not going to go super in depth into it, because like if you don't remember the Krebs Cycle, then there's a good chance that if I told you all about it, you probably wouldn't remember it either. But basically the Krebs Cycle is, it's the way that your cells generate energy using this substrate called ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. The way that it creates energy through this is through a process. Let's see, which one of these tabs was it open? Okay, so adenosine triphosphate gets cycled back and forth between adenosine triphosphate, adenosine monophosphate, and adenosine diphosphate. And any time it loses one of those P's, basically, because adenosine triphosphate, you think that's adenosine plus 3 phosphorus molecules, I believe. Adenosine diphosphate, that's 2 P's, and adenosine monophosphate is just the 1 P. So anytime that that chemical loses a P, that's how your cells like gain and use energy. And anytime it gains a P, then it requires work to actually add that P back into it. And that's basically how the Krebs cycle works. I'm not going to go super in depth into it. I'm giving like this really hand wavy explanation because, like I said, it's pretty complex. You'd have to go into it pretty deeply. But yeah, adenosine triphosphate, this whole process has this byproduct that is adenosine. And as it builds up in your body, that's what makes you feel sleepy. So you have these adenosine receptors in your brain. So the more adenosine that you have floating around, then the more it catches onto these adenosine receptors, and that's what really makes you sleepy. Pardon me. Now, like I said, caffeine is an antagonist to adenosine, which means that it's a chemical or it's a molecule that is similar enough to adenosine that it can actually latch on to those adenosine receptors, but it's different enough that it doesn't actually activate those adenosine receptors. So basically it covers up those adenosine receptors so that they can't be activated by the adenosine that's floating around. So if you got a ton of caffeine floating around in your system, it blocks adenosine. So instead of like making you feel more energized, what caffeine does is it actually blocks you from feeling sleepy. So the net effect is basically the same, but it is a little bit different. So it's kind of interesting. I think I was going to talk a little bit about adenosine receptors. Don't have to worry about that. Adenosine triphosphate, monophosphate, yeah, whatever. Already mentioned all that stuff. Yeah, it's super interesting stuff. If anybody's I don't expect that anybody's going to take my kind of hand-wavy explanations and become experts in biochemistry, but I think it's pretty interesting. Let's see, catch up on some of the comments. We already got a couple of other people. Double O asking, can I review Molly next? Molly Skylar? No, you're talking about drugs. You're talking about the drug Molly. I can't even remember what drug that is. I'm not up on my drug slang. No, I've mentioned before, I've never used any illicit drugs. Like I've smoked marijuana once, It's, I think that's about the hardest I've ever done. And even then, it was after marijuana became legal for recreational use in Washington. So when it comes to drugs, I've never used any illegal substances, nothing like that. Mr. Bad Guy 81 says my favorite flavors are tiramisu and espresso coffee ice cream. Oh my god, coffee ice cream, so good. Oh my goodness. If you think like a good cup of coffee is coffee with a little bit of milk, and a little bit of sugar, or a little bit of cream and a little bit of sugar, and what's ice cream? But cream, milk, and sugar with a little bit of coffee into it. So I feel like it's basically the same thing, just balanced off. And it fits with today's theme because it's got coffee, which everybody knows is everyone's favorite source of caffeine in the world. Crouching Biger. Hey Steve, Molly's Moon also has some pretty good ice cream too. I think some stores are selling pints. I've never heard of Molly's Moon, or Molly Moons, sorry. Molly Moons. So maybe that's what Double O was mentioning. I don't know. Hopefully you weren't talking about drugs, because this is not a drug. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about drug use. I cannot advocate for that stuff much at all. I'll have to take a look, see if Molly Moons is sold anywhere near me. I love trying new things, so I'll definitely check it out. Eric Winokur says in some trainings we learned that people have been charged with DUI on caffeine, but it's rare and probably only extreme cases. DUI under caffeine? Ooh, that is strange. I would be interested to know what kind of training that is. Is that like legal or police? You'll have to let me know. Interesting. I have mentioned before that back when I did the live stream on where I discussed performance-enhancing drugs, that caffeine for a hot minute was what do you call it? A controlled substance? I think it was a controlled substance under the World Anti-Doping Association and the U.S. Anti-Doping Association. But that didn't last long at all because everybody uses caffeine. And I, like on the one hand, I was really surprised that it was a controlled substance, but on the other hand, they allowed people to have as much as 375 mgs in their bloodstream at any one time, which is just an obscene amount of caffeine. I mean, that's like a 64-ounce big gulp of coffee that you drain 2 or 3 times. Like, yeah, 375 mgs is just a lot of caffeine. AJAT, you say, getting back to Ben & Jerry's, my second favorite flavor is fish food. Ooh, I would have to refresh myself on what fish food is. I can't even remember. I know it's got to be one of their most popular flavors. I think Cherry Garcia and fish food are probably the most popular flavors, mainly because they're named after famous musicians. I don't know. No, famous bands, I guess. Fish is a band. Cherry Garcia is a musician. AJ at the end says, ha ha ha, yes, review Molly Schuyler. She's awesome. I think it would be awesome to like sit down and have a chat with Molly Schuyler, see how she's hanging in there these days. Yeah, she's pretty incredible. Molly Schuyler, if you've seen her videos, like, you know who Molly Schuyler is. She's awesome. I love Molly. Now, I did mention that caffeine used to be a controlled substance by the World Anti-Doping Association. So it is interesting to look at the effects of caffeine on exercise performance. And I don't have any like references to bring up, so I don't get to fill the screen with any cool pictures or graphs or anything like that. But I do remember looking into this a little bit to see how caffeine improves, or whether it does improve athletic performance and exercise performance, stuff like that. And it was pretty interesting that although caffeine is extremely common in all forms of exercise at all, especially in the kinds of supplements that are really popular for bodybuilders, powerlifters, weightlifters, people who engage in resistance training or strength training, that caffeine actually didn't improve athletic performance in those realms much at all. So you could take as much caffeine as you want, and maybe it's the kind of thing that like helps give you a little bit more motivation to get you to the gym. But if you're already there, then taking a little bit of caffeine probably not going to improve your strength training performance a whole lot. I think the metric that they were using was a 1 rep max. I assume that they just I don't know, maybe they, I can't remember how they went about it, but they saw that there was no improvement in 1 rep max with a control that was not using caffeine versus the group that was using caffeine, or it might have been the control one day using caffeine and the same people not using caffeine on another day. But yeah, they saw no improvement in performance with strength training, and that's been my experience too. Like on the days when I'm feeling like maybe I shouldn't be working out so hard, or maybe I'm on like if I'm not using caffeine so that I can resensitize my body to it, then I actually tend to go towards the strength training, because I know that my lifting and my maximal strength is not going to be as adversely effective by not using caffeine, by not using the stimulant that I'm so used to. On the other hand, if you take cyclists, runners, endurance athletes, they found that I think there was it was a non-trivial improvement in probably time trial distances, time trial time, stuff like that for cycling. It was like a 5 or an 8% improvement in performance for people that were using caffeine versus those that weren't. And I believe the dose that they were using was 200 milligrams, which again is a ton of caffeine. That's about twice as much as I use when in the morning when I get my caffeine fix and before going out for a run. So yeah, if you're engaging in endurance exercise, then I think the prevention of the adenosine buildup, because you are burning so much energy over an extended period of time with endurance exercise compared to weightlifting, it's going to improve your performance. Now, I do want to put a little asterisk there and say, like, endurance exercise, you're burning more calories during the exercise, but over the course of an entire day, if you're weightlifting or something like that, that's increasing your basal metabolic rate, so you may be actually burning more energy over the course of an entire day with weightlifting. I don't know. It really depends on the kind of exercise that you're engaging in. But in a single exercise session, you're not actually burning that many calories while you're lifting weights. I think it's only like an extra 100 calories or 200 calories above your basal metabolic rate per hour when you're lifting weights, as opposed to like your BMR plus 600 or 800 per hour that you're like running or cycling or engaging in some kind of endurance exercise. Not an endorsement for endurance exercise for weight loss, but I guess if you want to burn a ton of calories, that's the way to do it. I will say that I think that caffeine is pretty popular in weight loss stacks, and I mean, it's pretty obvious why. It increases your metabolism, your metabolic rate, so that you are actually like burning a little bit more energy when you're just hanging out. So I get it, but it does have this rubber band effect where like you will become you will build up a tolerance to caffeine pretty quickly. So I make sure that once every couple of weeks, I'll just take a week off of caffeine. Just try to rely more on beta-hydroxybutyrate, or just make sure that I'm getting plenty of sleep or whatever I need to do. Of course, now that I'm working from home, I can basically like take a nap whenever I want, so I don't have to worry too much about getting tired in the middle of the day, which is kind of nice. One of the few benefits of being furloughed or working from home during the lockdown. Oh my goodness, I have rambled on for so long. Going for almost 25 minutes. Cool. Well, I am enjoying my Ben & Jerry's. Ice cream is another one of those foods that's just so incredibly palatable. One of those ones that I really like ice cream so much. And some of my favorite food challenges and restaurant challenges have got to be ice cream. All right, guys, that was my spiel for the day. I hope some folks found it interesting. Maybe you found it informative. Maybe you'll learn some new words like a chemical agonist. Oh gosh, I should think of an example of a chemical agonist. I can't really think of any off the top of my head, because there are some chemicals out there that are agonists instead of caffeine as an antagonist. But an agonist is basically like, well, I mentioned I smoked marijuana once, so let's go with that one. It's a pretty good agonist, where the cannabis, the molecule in cannabis, what is it? THC, whatever it's called. Tetra HC. I can't even remember what it is. I know so little about these things. But anyway, yeah, it's very similar to what are a chemical that your own body makes called, lo and behold, it's called an endocannabinoid. That's that's no coincidence. And these endocannabinoids attach to certain receptors in your brain. And these are, the endocannabinoid, that's the chemical, the neurotransmitter that your body makes. And you've got receptors in your brain that react to it. But the chemicals in marijuana and THC are similar enough to endocannabinoids that they can attach to those same receptors. And because they're so similar, they will actually activate those receptors. So it's kind of like pumping your body up with even more of this endocannabinoid neurotransmitter. And that's what an agonist is, as opposed to caffeine, which I said was an antagonist, which attaches to the receptor and prevents its usage, prevents its stimulation or excitation, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, cool. Well, like I said, I hope folks enjoyed it. I hope folks found that interesting. Maybe just listen to me ramble for half an hour in the background, kind of ASMR style, and that's cool too. I hope everybody out there is enjoying themselves. I don't even know if I mentioned Mr. Bad Guy. I said he was cheers from Italy, giving me cheers from Italy. So thanks for staying up late enough to catch the live stream, man. I know it's got to be a little bit late in the evening for you guys over there. I hope things in Europe are going all right. I hope things across the United States are getting a little bit better. Seems like things are trending towards better, as it were. And until tomorrow, I hope you guys stay healthy, stay hungry, stay happy, all those good things. I appreciate every single one of you guys for showing up in the live stream. And I look forward to talking again tomorrow. So until then, catch you guys later.